This episode of the MSP podcast is brought to you by Big Tex Outdoors. Everything you could possibly need for your firearm. If he doesn't have it, you probably don't need it. And PHLster holsters. Can't do a sub 5 second fast drill? We'll get a PHLster holster. If you still can't, well, at least you know it's not the holster's fault. And primary and secondary, the definitive source for the armed professional and the responsible citizen. Quit your bitching about all the rules and get better. All right, one more time, real take. All right. Hey guys, welcome back to the MSP podcast, otherwise known as the Self-Reliant podcast, otherwise known as the Get Better podcast, where it's more just about guns, guys. It's about everything. It's about nutrition. It's about working out. It's about combatives. Super honored to have my professor here, Charles Gomes of Gracie Baja, out of Gracie Baja, Ashburn. As per my norm, I'm horrible about giving introductions. So, sir, I'm going to ask you to do that. And like I said before, do not be modest, my friend. So tell us about yourself, Charles.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me. It's super exciting to be on. And obviously, ever since you started training with us, I've been listening to your podcast, and it's interesting to see all different types of people that you bring on, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit about me. My Jiu-Jitsu experiences started off basically not how you would expect, right? So I was a sophomore in high school, and Chris Brennan, who used to be in the UFC, had a location in Lake Forest.
Yeah, New Breed, right?
Yes, exactly. New Breed in Lake Forest. So my buddy's like, hey, let's go check this place out. So obviously he's an awesome guy in the UFC and all that. I come in, man, I got destroyed. I mean, I'm a small guy, right? Just in general, imagine me in high school, right? Maybe a $110. And I remember walking in, and all these guys had no shirts on, right? And they just beat the snot out of me. And after that class, I didn't join. I didn't like jiu-jitsu at all.
Yeah.
Which is complete opposite than most people, right? The first time they do jiu-jitsu, they fall in love with it. For me, it was the complete opposite. I was like, well, this is dumb. Like, why am I going to go in there and just get destroyed by these like guys that are, 250 pounds and chest hair right all in their face and side control, as you know how it is. And I kind of forgot about it, right? Yeah. So quick backstory. I moved from Brazil. So I was born in Ceará, the state of Ceará, in Iguape. It's about 20 minutes from the capital, Fortaleza, of the state's capital. And so I moved here when I was a little kid. We grew up in Southern California in Mission Viejo, and went to high school in Elisa Miguel, right? So had a good upbringing in general. My family worked hard. And once 9/11 happened, I was an immigrant, right? That moved here with my family. And once 9/11 happened, it was that moment for me that I said, okay, America has given me everything that I have today. And now it's my turn to kind of give back to America, right? And I've always had that feeling about America, but really that day was the day that solidified in me that said, you know what, I got to do something. So I joined the United States Navy, did 4 years on the USS John C. Stennis. It's an aircraft carrier. Mm-hmm. So that's really where my jiu-jitsu, my positive jiu-jitsu came from, was in the Navy. So my first class was a small little Filipino. And
of course, it was the Navy.
Yeah.
Was it in the supply area?
No. We were damage control, shipboard firefighter. And a small little Filipino for DC-1 Rossetti. Basically, every time a new person comes in, you would have to fight him, right? Not fight like with like hands, but you would have to grapple with him, and you have to survive. And it just became like that little ritual for us. So I remember I came in, got destroyed by him and a couple other people. And then as new people came, right, then we did it to them. And when we were deployed, what we would do is we would buy DVDs, right? The DVD sets of different techniques, and just work that over and over and over.
Yeah.
We at one point even started doing like fight clubs in the back in the ash shop, right, which is the back of the ship, and Air Division would come down and we'd do like boxing matches, like underground boxing matches, right? We would have jiu-jitsu matches, whatever you can think of, we would do, and one person would like lock the hatch up, so no officers or no higher enlisted could come down. And but that's where I really fell in love with jiu-jitsu, was during deployments, where you'd have nothing else to do besides train, right? You work out, you train, you play video games. I mean, that's the cycle that we had. So that's where I really fell in love with jiu-jitsu. I thought I knew a lot because at this time we were training 3-4 times a week on the ship. But once I got out of the Navy and I moved back in with my mom, there was a Gracie Barra school that was close to me, Gracie Barra Oceanside at that time. So I'm like, cool, let me go check it out. I'm young. I'm like, I've been training jiu-jitsu for a couple years. I can handle myself. I go in there, destroyed. I mean, destroyed in the complete opposite way than it was destroyed the first time I went in.
Yeah.
Right. The first time I trained jiu-jitsu, it was, if you couldn't hang, you couldn't hang, and you left.
Right.
This was a humbling beat down, but they were smiling and then telling you what you did wrong or how you can do better, right? And that's where I'm so lucky enough to be been a part of Gracie Barra from day one, because that atmosphere and that culture has really made me who I am, right? And I think most Gracie Barras are that way. So I received so I've been training for about 14 years. I received my black belt from my professor, Flavio Almeida, Cachorrinho. He's very well known throughout the jiu-jitsu community, right? He's one of the he's head of North America Gracie Barra. His brother, Ricardo Almeida, was in the UFC. He's now the head coaches of many UFC fighters. So that's kind of been my journey to where jiu-jitsu is. And then exactly almost 1 year ago, June 1st, is when we officially opened up Gracie Barra Ashburn. And now, this dream of ours, Coach Dana and myself, is kind of here in fruition. So we're super excited.
Outstanding. So where I want this podcast to kind of be, right? So I'm kind of known for three things, right? Getting people spun up on red dot pistols, getting people to compete regardless if it's just for competition, but how those skills can go into self-defense, and getting people into jiu-jitsu, right? I would probably say 30% of the questions I get are people asking me to recommend schools in their area because they don't know who to go to, what to look for, what questions to ask. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit, right? A couple things before we get into that. For those people that know nothing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I don't know where you've been, fam. But that being said, a couple of things, right? All of my, if you don't know, right, R in a lot of pronunciations is pronounced like an H in Portuguese, right? And now people are going, why do they speak Portuguese, not Brazilian? Whatever. Educate yourselves, people, right? So it's pronounced Gracie Barra, all right? Yeah, that's it. That's all I want to kind of go over with people. And we don't call them Sifu or Sensei or Master. For the most part, we call them Professor. So if you hear me referring to Charles as Professor, that's just kind of the respectful way to talk to a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. So that being said, Professor, what do people want to look for, for themselves, for their kids, whatever? What do they want to look for when they go into school? What questions should they be asking?
Good question. I think for us, it's a little bit different, right? Because we've been trained jiu-jitsu for a long time, so we know what to look for when we go into a school, right? Even when we're visiting, like the minute you walk into a school, you know exactly if it's a good school or not good school. Unfortunately, for a brand new student that has no idea what jiu-jitsu is and walks in and wants to try an intro class, I think that they need to look at three very important aspects of that school. regardless, of course, I'm going to always be biased, right? I think all these three aspects, you go to any Gracie Baja, you're going to get it. But in general, Master Carlos's vision is to have Jiu-Jitsu for everyone.
Yep.
Master Carlos Gracie Jr. And not necessarily a Gracie Baja in every city. He wants a Jiu-Jitsu school, regardless of affiliation, in every city. Why? Because I think he believes that it's important for us as a community, right? Mm-hmm. So 3 things I kind of want to hit up on today is the visual the first time you walk into a school, right? That's going to be the one time you're going to either say yes or no. If you walk into a school and you look around and the school's not clean, that should be one of your first hints of, you know what, I better watch my P's and Q's, right? Because if you walk into a school that's completely dirty, what is the mindset that you're going to go into? The mindset is one that they are not clean, right? And in jiu-jitsu, if you're not clean, guess what? You start getting ringworms and you start getting all these other things that can go with it. But if it's a clean school, you know that they take pride in their school.
Yep.
Right. So if they take pride in their school, most of the time, they're going to take pride in every single aspect of their school, from teaching, right? Yeah. So it goes into all different aspect of. I think the first thing that they want to really do is, so the first thing for me when I go to a school is, how clean is the school? If I feel like I can eat off the mats, perfect.
Yeah.
Right. From the instructional standpoint, training standpoint, that's a different area you want to kind of take a look at. But that for me is the first thing that I will always look at, is how clean is the school. And I'll give you a quick example, and then obviously you can jump in and give me your standpoint as well, right? Yeah. And like for us, when we opened Gracie Baja, we wanted to have the culture of 3 times a day, the school gets cleaned, regardless if there's 1 person on the mat or 50 people on the mat, right? So from the beginning, we said that because habits, right? Habits are made 30 to 60 days.
Yep.
Right? So if you're able to do that for 30 to 60 days, it doesn't matter. It will always happen. And there are a couple of times, right, where we could have been like, oh, there's only 1 student on the mat. Like, you don't really need to clean it. No, we didn't really sweat that much. Well, but if you do it that 1 time, you're going to do it a 2nd time, a 3rd time, right? So for me, that is one of the most important things that a student or a potential student wants to look at when they're looking at a new school.
Yep, 100%. Which is one of the reasons. Well, before we get in, I mean, that's it may not be obvious to a lot of people, right? Because they're used to going to like regular gyms, stuff like that, which may be clean. Which it's not really that hard to keep those places clean. You know, you wipe a couple weights off or the elliptical or whatever, and you're good to go. You know, what most people kind of do is look at the bathrooms and stuff, right?
Exactly.
And seeing how those are, right? Not to equate our mats with the bathrooms, but you're not going to go into a gym with a messy bathroom and go, oh, this is the place for me. Right. The equivalent is our mats, right? There are not a lot of, I personally don't think there's a lot of dangers, but anything with close personal contact is going to have some issues. The biggest, which is, don't want to scare people off, but it's ringworm, right? It ain't going to kill you, but it's very bothersome. Yep. You know, you get it, the next guy get it. So next thing you know, no one's training, and then everyone starts to leave. And if the school doesn't take that importantly, it goes exactly what you're saying. If they're not mindful of the cleanliness of the school, they're not mindful about the cleanliness of their technique, they're not mindful about the safety of their students, right? And they start, say, pairing up people that shouldn't be paired up together, or there's a severe weight disparity or a disposition disparity, right? And then nobody gets better. And that's what this is all about. It's about getting better. And the first step is being clean, having a clean school. Awesome. Cool.
Well, one thing I will put, some schools have showers and some schools don't, right? Those that have showers, that's the one area you want to go, right? That's the one area you want to look at, because it's the least area that they're going to really focus on.
Yeah.
They're going to focus on, obviously, on the things that people can see, right? But look at the area that is least going to be looked at, and that's going to give you a good guideline of how the school looks like.
Yep. And I would say this: just because the school doesn't have showers isn't a reason to disqualify them.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
no.
because
it was just an example if they do have a shower, right?
Yeah.
If they don't have a shower, right, you're looking at the changing room, right? The changing room, how clean the changing room is, their offices, right? Things that the students don't normally see. Those are the things you really want to make sure you take a look at.
Yeah, and the point I was going to make, for example, my buddy Sean Luca, he's Henzo Grace in Pittsburgh, right? Mm-hmm. And they got showers. And he's like, you guys don't shower before you leave? Filthy savages, right? But here, where we live in Loudoun County, in order to put a shower in your gym, it costs like $20,000, you know, in order to do that, right? So that's why a lot of gyms around here don't have that. So, okay, what's number two? What's the second thing?
So for me, and it's funny, I agree with one of your past attendees, right? That gave this exact same answer. For me, it's very, very important. So after taking a look at how clean the school is, another big aspect. Like, I don't take a look at the technical aspect, because that's you can always learn from either a good instructor or a bad instructor, right? It's how do you want to learn? Of course, that helps having a great instructor. But for me, is how many women train with you at your school?
Okay.
One of your past guests said the same thing, and I could not be more in agreement with that, because
I think it was either Cecil Birch or Paul Sharp. It was one of those dudes.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was, I remember him saying it, and I was like, yep. And for me, the reason why that is important, because women, it's a male dominated sport.
Yeah.
Right. So we're rolling on top of each other, right? We're sweating on top of each other. It's not very conducive for women in general, right? So if you're able to attract women, you're always going to have like that one or two girls that they're just tough, right? They're tough. Professor Glossier, right? That trains with us, tough as nails.
Yeah.
And but you're always going to have those tough women that doesn't matter. Like, you can put them anywhere, they're gonna succeed. But if you can bring in a mom of 3, right? If you can bring in a college girl that's very timid and it's not natural for them to grapple with men, that for me is going to be a indication how healthy your school is, right? Because all schools, you're gonna have your tough guys, right? But also, how are those tough guys training with the women? And women are not staying if they're getting crushed, getting injured by these tough guys, right? So for us here at Gracie Barra Ashburn, that's what we're very lucky, not lucky because we've worked on it, right? It's been a huge initiative with Gracie Barra in general over the past few years, over the past 10 years, really, of really making jiu-jitsu for everyone, not just jiu-jitsu for the athlete, right? Because half the population are women. And sure, you and I can train jiu-jitsu, but the women need it just as much as we do.
Yeah, if not more.
If not more, right? For mental health, for decompression, right? For safety. So the way I look at it, if we gotta, if I put you with Deb, right? With Deb, or I put you with your wife Bev, like, if you hurt one of them, then, well, first of all, Deb will then kill you. That's first and foremost.
Right.
And then she'll ask me to kill you.
Exactly.
So, but how you were able to train with somebody that's a lot lighter, right? And not being able to use your actual physical strength versus them is super, super important. So the population, I'll give you an example. For our school, between like the little kids, little girls, and the adults, we have We have 40% women that train at our school.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. I've never seen that many women on the mat at the same time, except for maybe like an all females charity roll or something
Right.
like that. It's absolutely nuts. And what's also super inspiring about the school is, most of the people who watch or listen to the podcast know I'm a big dude, right? So I'm 6'2", 285. And to have,
but good looking though,
there it is. Kind of need a haircut, but other than that, I'm all right, right? And they come up and they want to roll, right? They don't know me, but they also know that trust that they have in you, that they or Glacia or you or Glacia or Dana wouldn't pair them up with me if I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I have to be intelligent enough to be able to train with someone much smaller, much lighter than me, and still get some training out of it, right? I think the last time Bev and I matched up was when we're doing spider guard, and I suck at spider guard, which is a perfect thing because she's on top. I get spider guard. I get to work on it without me getting crushed by some of our bigger friends, right? So I learned something. She learns how to get out of it and how to pass. And since there's no weight on top of her, it's fine. But that's an incredible amount of trust that everyone, especially the ladies, have in their leadership at the school. So absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, like Coach Dana, my wife is a purple belt. She's super tough. And
monster. Monster.
And for me, it's the biggest thing for me that I really enjoy is having a woman come in, never doing jiu-jitsu. At first, it's very intimidating.
Yep.
Regardless if they say it or not, like you can see it in their eyes. And then I tell them, because we always do a private class before they join the school, right? That way they feel comfortable with any student, regardless if it's male or female. And I tell them, hey, you're going to throw me over your shoulder today. And their eyes just go boom.
Yeah.
Right. And they're in disbelief.
Yeah.
They're in disbelief because they don't believe it.
Right.
And it's so empowering. By the time that the class is over, they physically are able to throw me over their body, and the confidence that they receive from it is unbelievable, right? Because now they know that they can throw me over their shoulder. That's the first step of, you know what else can I do? What else can jiu-jitsu teach me? And I tell you and some of our other students, like, if Coach Dana is walking down the street, right, and there's no weapons involved, and some dude try to grab her, like, I feel sorry for them. Like,
yeah,
I better call the police on them.
Right. Yeah.
Because Dana will break their arm.
Right. Or ambulance first. Yeah,
the ambulance first. Yeah, one of our little kids, he says he'll call the wambulance. The wambulance.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
So for me, that's the most important thing is how many women are trained there? Because if there's a lot of women, that means you've built a good culture where everybody feels they're getting something out of it, right?
Right, 100%, man. And then, so getting back to the people that are unfamiliar with the techniques of jiu-jitsu, I said it's even more important for women than it is for men. Yes, it's male dominated because men dominate, martial arts for the most part, right? But the thing that sets jiu-jitsu from every other martial art and even the grappling arts is the guard, where you're on your back and your legs are wrapped around the person's weight, so you control their center of gravity. And there are chokes, there are arm locks, there are wrist locks, there are leg locks, bite, that you can do with yourself on the back. And let's face it, what is the most dangerous position a woman can be in a assault or self-defense position? It's with another person in between their legs. That is what sets jiu-jitsu apart. Focusing on that. And then you got the other extreme, big dudes, right? I've always concentrated on the guard because I'm a big guy. Me being in top on the altercation is just what I'm supposed to do. But the way that I think about it, having been in more street fights than I can care to it, that I want to care to admit, right? If someone challenges me, they're not going to come straight up to me. It's usually going to be from behind,
Right.
being a tackle position, getting me to the ground first. Well, I got to learn how to fight off my back, right, to get up to a more dominant position. So it applies to everyone. It applies to everyone. And again, the beauty of jiu-jitsu is everything has a component of speed and strength. But for me, jiu-jitsu is the one martial art or sport, whatever reason you want to do, that where the pinnacle of all of the ingredients is technique overall. I mean, you and I are a classic example, right? How big are you, Professor?
Maybe a buck. I'm probably like a buck 65 now with the quarantine.
Right.
So,
So I got a good 120, 25 pounds on you. And when we roll, you do what you want for the most part. You know what I mean? The only time I get any headway is because you let me do it to see what I'm going to do. And it's absolutely amazing. It makes me want to work harder because I know that the technique works. And that's the other thing that sets jujitsu apart, right? Before we get to number three, let me ask you this. We're probably going to go down a rabbit hole. So remember number three. I don't want to forget that.
yeah, no,
The other thing that sets jiu-jitsu apart is that we pressure test everything, right? So we start off at Gracie Baja. Not all schools are like this, but for the most part, a lot of them are. We start off with usually a self-defense technique, right? Whether it be a throw, a choke counter, a bear hug counter, a punch counter, yada yada yada, and then we get into just a pure jujitsu thing that could be applied to either self-defense or sport. Then we take that and we positionally roll, setting a person up in that less than advantageous position, and then we do an actual pressure testing roll. How important is the amount that school actually rolls, actually spars? Does it have to be every class, once a week, twice a class? How is that important? Why is that important?
so it's very important, and it's a good point that you're bringing up because if you think about jiu-jitsu, it's the only real art besides, let's say, like wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you can pressure test at full speed, at full strength, and people don't get hurt as you would if you were boxing or Muay Thai, right? And I have so much respect for guys that are Muay Thai fighters, right? I'm not trying to get hit. I'm not trying to get hit by those knees and those legs.
No.
But you can't do that. You can't spar like that every single day very hard because guess what? Your bones won't be able to take it because you're getting chopped over and over and over. Same thing with boxing, right? With the head trauma of these guys in their later years. So you can't box full speed every single day. Where jiu-jitsu you can, right? That's why we put our students in positional sparring, right? So for us at Grace Baja, GB1, we don't spar per se, like shake hands and go, because most of these students that are in GB1, they're brand new. If I put two guys that are, let's say, your size, right, together, two alpha males together, and I say go, one of them is not coming out, and one of them's going to get hurt, which is bad for you. One, because now you don't have a partner.
Yeah.
Right. But then from a school standpoint, that student's out of commission. So we do specific training. So specific training for us is we do a technique, we do two techniques, and then we put you on that technique and we say, okay, when I say go, you have to accomplish that technique in full speed, right? And that full speed means that the other person is trying not to allow you to do that. And that's when you know if the technique works, right? Because katas are great to get formed. But if the guy doesn't come at that angle, at that speed, then you're never going to be able to really counter the moves, right? But when you are on top of me and I say, hey, Scott, this week we're working the back take. Scott, you have to take my back. If you're not physically able to put the hooks in, that means one, you're doing something wrong, or two, I'm doing something right by not allowing to. So it's the cat and mouse game, right? Where you have to do the technique perfectly, and then I need to make sure I counter it, but then we switch. And that way you are the one that's doing, you're the one that's being the mouse, and then I'm the one that's chasing, right? And again, that's where for us, it's very important because that's where your technique is really developed, right? In GB2 and GB3, then we are allowed sparring because by that time, you've had at least 6 months to 8 months of actual training. You understand the movements. So it's easier for me to go and coach that way, right? I can say, hey guys, spar, but then I partner you up against somebody that is, the way I partner people up is one, I usually partner somebody up with the same technique, right? Someone that's about the same level, because I want that give and take.
Yep.
Right? You might win, they might win, but it's always up and down. The second round, what I usually try to do is I try to put somebody with somebody that's less, because I want you to work on that technique and actually accomplish the technique. You should be able to accomplish the technique. And then third, I try to put somebody that's above you, where technically you should be getting smashed, right? You should be losing, but that's how I try to partner our students, and that's how I was taught from my professor Flavio, because everybody's winning, right, at that time, but you're still always working, and that's how you slowly start improving in and out.
100%. And also getting back to the people that may not know some of the terms that we're using. When we say smashed, it's from weight, right? So there's a couple of things, right? Are there punches and punches and kicks in the pure self-defense form of jiu-jitsu? 100%. Right? Again, like we were saying before, the problem with punches and kicks, man, is like hematomas and all that other stuff that's very hard to practice that, right? So when we say smash, we're not talking about punching and kicking and elbowing. What we're talking about is you are in such a position where you can put your weight on a person and they can't move. The great, what's the word? Escape. The best escape from everything is to tap.
Yep.
Right? Is to tap, you know? If you come across a jiu-jitsu person who says they've never tapped from pressure, they're lying.
Well, so there are a couple things, right? They're either lying or they're not putting themselves in a position to learn, right? And that becomes ego, right? Because again, if you're only tapping everybody out, that means you're not putting yourself, let's say, in your worst position for you to learn. And eventually, the issue with that is you plateau because everybody else will understand your game.
Yep.
And then you're going to get to a point where you can't tap them anymore, right? And then that's where the ego comes in, right? Because if you have that ego in jiu-jitsu and you can't beat somebody, that's usually when you leave, because you feel like you're not getting better, but you're not getting better because you're not allowing yourself to get better.
Right. And that's where the positional sparring really comes into place. Like, for example, what's a good example? Getting triangled, right? Like, it is completely subconsciously hardwired into me that the minute I see someone's legs move, my elbows drop. Right? My elbows drop. But if you're not drilling, whether situationally or positionally, on how to do certain, escapes or things of that nature, and you're never going to get a triangle on me unless I let you. And that's where some of the positional stuff. I mean, we don't start in triangles, but pretty close in some stuff.
Right.
Awesome. Okay. So what was number 3?
So for me, going back, and again, like number 1 and 2, like had nothing to do with techniques. It had nothing to do with the actual structure, with the instructor and how they're teaching, right? Number 3 is just like number 2. And it's definitely it's last, but it's not the least, right? It's the kids program.
Yeah.
How healthy is your kids program? I'm 100% convinced that if a school has a healthy kids program, it tells a lot about the instructor, right? Because to have a solid kids program, the instructor needs to have patience. The instructor needs to be able to understand each individual student, right? Because kids and adults are completely different animals, right?
Yep.
So, so for me, a healthy kids program tells a lot. Why? Because one, you know that the instructor is they're pretty focused, right, on how to teach the kids, which then translates to how to teach adults, right? For us, and in general, a good rule of thumb is either a 50-50 split between adults and kids, or even a 60-40 split, right? And again, for a school to grow, you need to have a solid kids program, but not everybody knows how to teach kids.
Yeah.
Right? It's very hard to teach kids because it's not just about the techniques. It's about, are the kids having fun and are they learning at the same time? Right? That's why this whole quarantine thing has been more difficult on the kids. All our kids are still coming on through Zoom, but when we started this through Zoom, we know how to teach the techniques, and they're doing the techniques fine. But usually at the end of the class, we always play games with the kids, right? Because they need to be able to be kids at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so we had to rethink, how do we play games at home?
Yeah.
Right. So now we found new ways for us to play games at home where the kids are interacting with us. So for us, it's one, the patience of the instructor, but two, the kids are learning, right? Because that's jiu-jitsu. They have to learn jiu-jitsu. And three is, you're not only teaching to the kids, you're also teaching to the parents. And I think a lot of instructors miss that point, right? Because at the end of the day, the parents are the one that's paying for the kids. So they want to see that value of those kids learning, but values of them learning a double leg takedown is important. A value of them learning a triangle, that's important. But the values of us teaching them, hey, today, guys, if you're not doing your homework, like, you can't come to class today, right? The value, I told the kids this week, for them to write a card for their mom and dad, from 3-year-olds to my 10-year-olds. I told them, write a card for your mom and dad and tell them what you're thankful for, because your mom and dad are working more than ever right now. So those lessons, it's important for the kids to hear that as well, but it's also important for the parents to know that we care about those kids.
Yeah.
And when the parents understand that we care about the kids, the parents eventually join the school, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good consequence that will happen. We do such a great job caring and loving these kids like they're our own, that the parents are comfortable leaving their kids with us for that hour and a half, whatever it is. And then the parents want to be a part of that culture, right? Because that culture, they can take it to their own homes and say, hey, remember, like Professor Charles said, you should be doing this, you shouldn't be eating pizzas, right? Those little things. So for us, my number 3 is a healthy kids program. Because if you can teach a kids program, everything else goes back to the women, right? Then that means you've built a good culture for the women to come in, which then you've built a good culture for Jiu-Jitsu for everyone, which is Gracie Baja's main philosophy.
Yep, I think those are my top 3. Although, the women's program is new. I think I always said 2 things: is it clean and does it have a good children's program, right? But you're right. Well, and probably because I've never seen a school with as many women as there are at Gracie Baja Ashburn. So let
me tell you one quick story.
Yeah.
We have a lot of women that train here, like, consistently.
Yeah.
There are times where my GB1 class will have more women than men, which is unheard of in most schools, right? But it's the norm in Gracie Baja. And that's what I think people need to realize. Gracie Baja's built that culture over decades, right? I had a student reach out to me. We had a conversation, and he's like, hey, his sister trains jiu-jitsu as well. And he was like, hey, he was super worried. He's like, his sister came in for self-defense. He's like, I'm super worried because she's learning jiu-jitsu. She was probably in it for maybe 3 months at that time. And he goes, can she really defend herself if somebody attacks her? And it was a genuine concern that he had, right? Because you see some of those YouTube videos of those masters, right? The air, and then they push everybody aside. And he was super worried. He's like, can she defend herself? And I said, and it was an honest answer, right? I said, if she were to get attacked right now, it's true. She has a better chance now than she did before. Doesn't mean that she's there yet, right? 7 months later, I see her tap out 2 guys. And then I saw her tap out her boyfriend at the time. Her boyfriend is an MMA fighter. He trains no gi.
Yeah.
Right. So he put on the gi. He started training the gi with us because he wants to learn the gi as well.
Yeah.
And she got a 2-hand collar choke, and he just didn't see it coming. And you know how it is. Like if you don't know it's coming, it's gone.
Yeah.
And now I can look back at that young lady and I can tell her, yes, like she's not a false sense of preparedness, but she's prepared enough where if something happens, I feel more comfortable, right? Give this young lady another year, give this young lady another 3 years, and she's Dana, right? Yeah. She's Coach Dana. She's Professor Glossia down the road. And for me, that's what's important, I think, is letting them see their own potential, right? And we're just there. We're just the vehicle that helps them guide them through this journey.
Yep. As a quick aside, for those of you who don't know, we're talking about Glossia Varaga. What weight does she fight in?
She was medium weight.
Medium weight, right? Which is like what? 135?
135, 140 maybe.
Yeah, 135, 140-ish, guys. So that's what she competes in, right? She's about 5'5".
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe 5'5". So I would go to GB1 a lot because that's when my wife trains, and then we, GB2 we roll right afterwards. And a lot of times, you have to be three-stripe white belt or above to actually just do the free roll. A lot of times people wouldn't be there, so I would just roll with Glossia, and we would do these long 10-minute rolls. Again, I've got 150 pounds on her, right? And if I told you that she didn't tap me, I'd be a liar. On the other hand, if I said that I didn't tap her, I'd be a liar. But that's the point, is that she would roll with me every single time, 5, 7, 10 minutes plus, right? And just take it. And I didn't, that in it of itself, right? Of being able to roll with someone twice your size, right? Over twice your size, right? And not keep me at bay out of toughness. I mean, a part of it's toughness because she's a monster too, but out of pure technique, right? She would literally tell me to start using my weight, and it's just like.
And trust me, no one's wanting Scott to put the weight on them.
Yeah, no. But she was getting ready for that match in Missouri or Kansas or something like that, and she's like, bro, Scotch, time to go. Put your weight on me. Just go. Don't worry about it. Just go. And I'm like, I'm going to kill this woman, right? Nope. And it was all because of technique. And that's the most inspiring thing out there, man. Because here's the deal. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care if you're a 140-pound woman or a 140-pound dude. I'm going to smash you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you think you're going to survive just because you're a dude, you're wrong. So everybody needs the proper technique, even me. Bev reminds me all the time that, when we're drilling at home, it would be the equivalent of me drilling with a 700-pound dude, right? And she does it. I haven't met a 700-pound dude, and I don't want to try, right? but it's incredible. And I think so. Getting back to what we were saying about the 1, 2, and 3, with all due respect to Chris Brennan and New Breed out there, I actually didn't go to the class, but I remember when we moved to Southern California, Orange County, because he was right there in Lake Forest. We were in Rancho Santa Margarita. I walked in and I was just like, nope, because it was an MMA school.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was an MMA school. And, again, I have plenty of MMA fighter friends, past and present. If you want to fight, you actually want to get into the ring and fight, then go to MMA school, right? If that's not you, then go to a jiu-jitsu school.
Yeah.
For all those reasons we just listed.
Yeah, even saying that, though, I mean, you think about, I can name countless names, right? That came from Gracie Barra that are MMA fighters, right?
Sure.
If you want to train tough, like, we're going to give you that environment to train tough.
Right.
So there's I guess a misconception out there, I think, with Gracie Barra that people have. There's like, oh, it's only a family, it's a family atmosphere, right? So you don't really get tough training. Man, come roll with Scott.
Yeah.
Come roll with Coach Hani.
Yeah.
Go to Homo Bahau School.
Yeah.
Go to Otavio Souza School. And that's one thing that, like, when I was with Professor Flavio in San Clemente, all those guys had to come through our program, through our school, because they had to basically stay there for like 6 months and learn how to teach. So when they did open their own school, they understood the business aspect and they understood how to teach, right? Because all these guys were fighters, right? They're competitors, world champions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would always forget, not take for granted, but it was just the norm. Otavio Souza is there every single day smashing you, right? Kyron Gracie is there training with you. Kira Gracie would come, right? Patoza, like, all these legends would come in. And so again, if you want to train tough, we'll give it to you as well. But we want to make sure we have we were able to help both extremes, but also help everybody in the middle, right? Yeah. So if you want tough training, we'll give you tough training. If you want to just come and hang out, we're going to hang out. But if you want to be in the middle, we'll do that as well.
100%. So, Professor, how important is lineage when a person's making a decision?
I think that's a tough question, because I think when a student starts, they don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Right. So.
But we do.
Yeah, we do. Obviously, there's the two branches.
Yeah.
Right. There's the main two branches where Carlos Senior, right, behind me. Him and Helio. There's that two branches, but it's unfortunate. And my professor currently has a little series going on the history of Jiu-Jitsu and the history of Gracie Barra in general. And those brothers didn't want a divide in the family, right? Yeah. The divide in the family happened second and third generations.
Yeah.
After they were gone. And then it becomes like, whose dad is better. Of course, if your dad's going to be always more important to you, and my dad's going to always be important to me, so I'm going to pull from that lineage, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened, which is unfortunate. And that's one reason why Carlos Gracie Jr. named Gracie Barra what it is, right? He could have named Gracie Barra Carlos Gracie Jr. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right, because it's the norm, especially in the 80s, right? It's the norm to have your name Jiu-Jitsu. But he had a lot of family members. He had a lot of cousins that was training with him, and he thought it would have been selfish for him to train and have his name when his family was training, right? And that's why when I opened Gracie Barra Ashburn, it's Gracie Barra because we're having respect for the school and our team, but Ashburn because it's about the community, right? So you got the two sides, right? To make it simplistic, one side wants to do more self-defense, right? Mm-hmm. You can then say the other side wants to do more sport. For me, it's the same. It's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, 100%.
You have to learn striking, right? You have to learn how to clinch. You have to learn the self-defense aspect of it in a street fight. But jiu-jitsu is not. Jiu-jitsu, what it is today, is because of the sport, right? So
Yeah.
I think you need to train both. And that's what we provide, right? We provide the self-defense aspect and we provide the sport aspect. But there are some schools that are stuck in that, no, I'm only going to train self-defense. And that's great, but then students will learn it and they get bored,
Yeah.
right? And then they leave.
Right.
Where at least with the competition, there's goals, right? There's, you know what you want to do. So it's a tough question for me to answer. But for sure, make sure that the person is legit, right?
Yeah.
If they say, "Hey, I'm a Flavio made a black belt," verify that he is a Flavio made a black belt, right? Because there's a lot of times, and like some of the early guys that would come from Brazil, nobody would know who they are, and then they're a blue belt, and then they just become a black belt when they come to the United States, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely want to make sure that their lineage is what they're saying it is.
And that's as easy as to do is to put in the person's name, put in the person's name, do BJJ lineage, and it'll pop up.
Yeah, that or just Google their name, right? Is there a history of them with that person, right? So again, I'm biased. I come from Carlos Senior side.
Yep.
And Carlos Senior and Carlos Gracie Jr. So my lineage is that way. I know friends that are on the other side, but for us, especially right now, man, jiu-jitsu in general is the most important thing.
Yes,
right.
100%.
We need jiu-jitsu more than ever, right? And I was telling the school this week, with all the craziness that's going out there, the world's telling us, hey, we're more divided than ever. I don't see that. Me as a Afro-Brazilian and an immigrant, I don't see that because my vision of the world has been formed through jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
My vision of the world has been formed because of the military. There is no race issue in the military. I'm sure there's little things here and there, right? With anything, but you're depending on the guy that's next to you and the girl that's next to you, right? So we don't look in the military on race. We look at qualification, right? We look at determination. We look at responsibility. Because if something goes bad, you need that person, regardless of their black, white, purple, gray. You need them to have your best interests as you have their best interests. And for me, that's what the mats right now really is the most important, right? Because I've seen somebody that's a pro-Palestinian student train with a Jewish student. They didn't know. I knew, right? Because I know I know my students.
Yeah.
They didn't know. Outside of here, they probably could have hated each other.
Yeah.
But with jiu-jitsu, it's one of those sports that you're sweating on top of there's not that many times where you're physically this close unless you're with your intimate partners, right?
Yep.
That you get this close to a human being. You hear their breath, you hear their heartbeat, right? And again, I've seen cops train with African Americans, right? I've seen everything. You see everything that the world tells us is wrong on these mats, and we prove it every day in and day out that the world's not like that, right? And that's why Master Carlos said he wants a jiu-jitsu school in every single corner, because we believe if there is one, the world becomes more united. Yep. That's our perspective, at least.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Because it's merit based.
It is.
It's merit based. It's not where you come from. It's not who your father is. It's not what neighborhood you come from. It's all merit based. There is a clear metric. Did you survive? Did you get tapped? Did you tap the other person? What did you learn today? Did you get better? Nobody cares, I've had similar experiences. I've rolled with guys who were on food stamps and I've rolled with multimillionaires.
Yep.
You know, I've rolled with 14-year-olds. I've rolled with 70-year-olds. You know, I've rolled with women. I've rolled with people who are bigger than me, smaller than me, and nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. It's
And,
all
and,
about.
it's every aspect of life, right? So, like in our school, the youngest student we have is 3 years old, right? Super cute.
Yeah.
The oldest, the most mature person we have is 68,
Yeah.
a woman, right? And everything in between, black, white, Muslim. I mean, you think every single category that everything that the world tells us we're wrong, we prove it. We prove it that it's BS, right? Sure, there are injustices in the world. Sure, we do need to do better. We can all do better, but we have to do better with us first before we try to change the world,
Yep.
right? And that's what we try to do every single day on the mats.
Yep, absolutely. So my other question is this. So, you know, through the beauty of the internet, you know, you can reach anybody across the country, across the world, right? And sometimes people will ask me about a school and there won't be anything near them, right? And let's say if there is, it's a school run by a blue belt or a purple belt, right? Brown belt, not so much of a big deal. Brown belt's just fine tuning their stuff before they get their black. But what do you say to a person who wants to go to school and the only thing around in their immediate area is a school run by a blue or purple belt? Is that something they should avoid, something they should hop into? What do you think?
So I personally, you got to look at, like we just talked about, right? Those 3 criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Look at those criteria. None of those criteria I said anything about a black belt.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, the black belt is important, right? Because that's knowledge, right? And that means a blue belt doesn't have as much knowledge as me or you.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that a blue belt can't pass the knowledge that he has currently, right? So it would be hard. I would say it would be hard for, let's say, a purple belt, right? A high purple belt like you to go and train with a blue belt that teaches on a daily basis, because you would physically have more technical aspects than them.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody is new, has never trained, I don't see personally wrong with them learning from that person, but that means that instructor needs to be more mindful and do his job and to keep learning. What it means is he going to those seminars, right? Is he having his professor coming in on a somewhat regular basis to keep his technical skills up, right? So again, for me, most important thing right now is that people should be trained in jiu-jitsu, right? And we and this might be another topic we want to bring up, is what we're talking about, the cops, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think all cops should be trained in jiu-jitsu.
100%.
And I think, because you think about it, why do cops pull their guns out on an unarmed person? Your guess.
Viable threat. You know, you don't have to have a weapon to be a deadly threat.
Absolutely, right? So what I think, I'm not an LEO, right? I was never a cop, but I understand human psychology, and people will pull out their weapons, tasers or guns, because they fear the threat on the other side, right? Which is a very common and understandable fear to have.
Mm-hmm.
But they fear on the other side is because they don't know what could happen if they didn't have that gun.
Yeah.
Right. So if a cop that trains jiu-jitsu on a consistent basis and understands grappling, and the other person doesn't have a gun or a weapon, that cop that trains jiu-jitsu will never need that gun with that person, right? Because he'll be able to control them, and that's all. Yeah. That's all what jiu-jitsu is going to teach them, right? Is going to teach them how to control the situation without deadly violence, right? So I think that all LEO should be required, right? Required is a strong statement, but they should be Maybe, right? I know that they're trying to do reforms with the police departments and things like that. Personally, one bill should be that, hey, here's a funding. These guys have to train, right? Some type of martial arts that's going to be effective. And for me, the best martial arts to train is Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep.
Right? Because that's where the fight's going to be. The fight's going to be on the ground. It's not going to be kicking and punching, right?
Yep.
If you're kicking and punching, you're in a street fight. You're in a brawl.
Yeah.
You got to control them. Take them to the ground.
Yep. Yep. So let's get back to about how you're going to be helping that out, right? Yep. One of the things that we didn't talk about, and we may have assumed, is that people know what the belts are and time commitment and stuff like that. So not the kids' belts aside. The kids' belts are like Chinese algebra, man. I don't even understand it half the time, right?
There's five belts, but then there's some in between.
There's like stripes and colors and colors, and because you got to keep them motivated. I absolutely get that, right? So to iterate for those people that are new, that are thinking about it, right? So there's white. Everybody's a white belt. Congratulations, right? Next one is blue, then it's purple, then it's brown, and then it's black. There are 4 stripes in between each belt at most schools. Some schools don't give stripes, things of that nature, but for the most part, that's how that works, right? I want to hear your opinion, then I'll give mine. Like, have you ever taken another martial art besides Jiu-Jitsu?
Nope.
Okay, interesting. So from your understanding, though, what would you equate a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt to in another art?
Well, you can think about it in schooling, right? Think about it from a school standpoint, right? The white belt, right, is the elementary, right? The kids that are in elementary school, right? The blue belt, middle school, right? You got to go through those 2 years of middle school before you get into high school, right? Then you go high school, purple belt, right? Brown belt is when you go to college, right? And when you get to the upper, go through your PhDs and all that, then that's where you become your black belt, right? So if I had to equate it to anything, I would equate it to like a school system, right? And it takes longer to get a black belt than it does to get your become a doctor.
Yeah, 100%. About what do you say the average is? Well, let's go through each belt so that people don't freak out once we just throw the black belt number out at them, right? On average, if you don't take long breaks in between like me.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you seeing the average to be for a blue belt?
So the average, the way that we do it at Gracie Baja, there's minimum requirements you have to be before you move on to the next belt, right? So you should be averaging around 2 classes a week minimum, which would be 8 months to a year. 10 months to a year is when you should be a white belt, right? If you're coming every single day, then obviously you're probably a little bit shorter. If you're taking a little bit longer, then obviously you go a little bit towards the 1 year, maybe year and a half. So white belt between a year and a half, depending on
to get to blue belt. To
get to your blue belt.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Blue belt, you're roughly there between, again, depending on how your training structure is between 2 years to 4 years, roughly. Purple, right, is another 2 to 4 years. And then black is another 2 to 4 years. Again, it all depends on your commitment, right? And the commitment isn't you versus me, right? There's a lot of misconception, I think, with some students out there that you have to be able to beat me to get to the next belt. No, you have to be better than what you were yesterday. Because I can't judge you how you're traveling all the time.
Yeah.
Right. You're a husband, right? Yeah. You have your own business. I can't put you in the same category as we have a kid that's a college wrestler, took 4th in state his freshman year, and I can't compare you and him as the same person.
Right.
I can compare your techniques, but if you're putting your best in it and you're coming and you're improving your technical aspect of it, that's what I look at. Because the minute that I go you versus me, it's hard to tell. And now I'll give you an example, because another school, when I moved here in 2012, I trained at another school because there was no Gracie Baja. And I told them, hey, I'm Gracie Baja. Like, you take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And I was an assistant, and I was helping them teach for free because I like to teach. One of the belt ceremonies, Coach Dana was up for her promotion, right? And they only brought, I think, 4 or 5 purple belts, and there was like 20 people that were up for the promotion, and they only brought like 4 or 5 belts. And they're like, all right, there's 1 belt left. Whoever gets the submission next gets it. And I was like, and then Dana, and then because her style versus the other style didn't match, right? Because you always have people that styles doesn't mesh, or you just could, be a lot better than that one person, right? And then you tap them out. So they did it that way, and that's looking person versus person. And I don't like that, because she's a mom, right? She's a business owner. I can't look at her progress versus somebody that doesn't have as much responsibility.
Yeah.
Not to say that her technical aspect needs to be relaxed. No. She still needs to have the technical aspect to do a sweep, right? Triangles, everything that she needs to do to get to the next promotion. But I and my professor as well, we look at individuals when they are ready for that promotion.
Plus, people make mistakes in the role all the time, man. I would hate to get my belt just because that dude made a technical mistake.
Well, not just a technical mistake, but what happens? Okay, let's put this scenario up. Let's say a niece, right?
Yeah.
Your brother. Your brother got in a car accident last night.
Right.
God forbid, right? And you didn't sleep one ounce because you were helping your brother. Or you can think of different scenarios, but you don't know what was happening with them that day. Because I see my students every single day, and Coach Dana and I see our students every single day. So we see the progress, right? So it's not that I'm only seeing you guys every 3 months.
Right.
Or then it's who gets it, right?
Yeah.
I see the progress every single day. So when I promote, I know what they do every single day. So if they have a bad day, I know that it was a bad day, and it wasn't just a fluke, right? So that's how I kind of look at it.
Okay. I'll add a little bit to that, because I've done all sorts of different martial arts growing up and stuff like that, mainly probably the big one was, Taekwondo growing up, and everyone kind of, they equate just, like 10-year-old has a Taekwondo black belt, hi-ya, right? And that's often misunderstood. There are junior black belts and there are black belts in Taekwondo. So I'm just going to compare it to the adult black belt, where you're 17, at least 17 to get that. I would say a 17-year-old American, blah, 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 right? If they have a black belt in Taekwondo, it's probably the equivalent of a good blue belt, I think lots of people, I don't know if I've ever told where I got into my fist fights were playing pickup basketball in Vegas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And before I took jiu-jitsu, man, I did well, but it was hard work, right? I relied on what little wrestling I had and what boxing I had. I would never try and kick a dude in the face because for fear of being taken to the ground, right? I had no idea what to do there for the most part, especially on my back. After 6 months of jiu-jitsu, it was child's play, right? And the great thing is that nobody was getting hurt, right? People are throwing bad punches. I would arm drag them into a rear naked. They would think I was doing magic, and it was done.
Right.
And then everyone else saw me do that, and nobody ever messed with me, for the most part, right? So that's what I would equate it to, which is so often why so many people get their blue belt and then quit because they think they're done. You know what I mean? Which is fine. It's, that level of jiu-jitsu is still better than no jiu-jitsu at all. Right. So you're thinking about launching a program, right?
Yeah. And I actually saw this program from your lovely wife.
Okay.
I saw she posted something about another school offering jiu-jitsu training for LEOs,
Mm-hmm.
and then you and I, after class, we started talking about it, and it's something that I wanted to do because with this crazy environment that we're having, I'm seeing people put black boxes. I'm seeing people just social media protesting,
Yeah.
right? But they're not doing anything in real life.
Yep.
Um, and I want to be an example, but I also want to do something that's actually going to make a change, right?
Yeah.
And how do we do that, right? We do that by allowing our LEOs to train, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a seminar for all local LEOs to come here at our school and train, right? It's going to be very realistic training. I'm going to have them try to cuff Hani, and then Hani's going to go ape shit
Yep.
and take them down, right? Realistic, right? I
They need
want it to
to
be
they need to start limbering up the wrists right now, man.
they I want them to see how realistic it is of
Yeah.
what happens if they don't know what's going on the ground.
Right.
And then after the end, and I would like to offer 5 LEOs a chance to train for free for a year, right? But as we talked about, like sometimes it's hard to give something for free,
Mm-hmm.
not from a financial standpoint. Is people don't value, right? They don't value something that they are getting for free as much
Right.
as if they're paying for it, right? So we want to do a program, and again, this came from you, which I didn't think about, and it's an awesome idea. That 5 LEOs that we pick, they'll be responsible to recruit and mentor and guide 5 low-income families, right? 5 students that
Yep.
are low-income families. Could be African Americans, whatever it is. We'll put the details together. And what does this do? One is community engagement for police officers, right? Two, um, these kids that might think that police are bad and police are racist and police are this and that, they get to train with them on a somewhat regular basis. And they realize, hey, that guy, right? It's not that cop or that white cop or that black cop. It's that guy is my teammate. Like that guy is
Yeah.
going to do whatever he can to help me. And both sides will come to, I hope both sides can come together and we impact 10 families,
Yeah.
right? And that 10 family then gets impacted and multiplied. And that's how it gets compounded throughout, right? And then in theory, what I would like to do is have the LEOs, and you can jump in and give me your thoughts as
Yeah.
well. Have LEOs train for a year, right, until they get their blue belt. And then afterwards, we recruit 5 new LEOs, right? And
Mm.
then those 5 will be able to find 5 more students
Yep.
that are low income or that just don't have the means. And we kind of work it that way, right? And then for those that came in that weren't chosen for those 5 spots, we'll give them a very, very, very low price for them to come and train. Because again, it's for us, it's very important that they come and train. That's the most important part.
Yep. Yep. There's a saying going around, just don't talk about it, be about it. And when we started talking about this on the mat the other day, man, I got goosebumps because it's very hard to say that anything's perfect, but it is the perfect idea to get the community back together. And there is no better solution than jiu-jitsu. Like my students will tell you that, my quote, I say, hashtag everything is jujitsu, right? They go, how did you become such a good, firearms instructor and diagnostician and things like that? I go, I learned everything from jujitsu. I learned anything from firearms classes. I mean, I'm not going to say nothing, right? They were great classes, but my skill in teaching someone how to shoot a pistol 100% comes from jujitsu. There's a reason for every success and every failure, right? And it's all based on technique, not necessarily working harder. And if we take that same example of finding the right technique to solve the problem, this idea is the right technique. This is the right technique to bring the community together, to get LEOs out there training on the mat so that, the gun is not always the solution to the problem. To get other people to see people outside of uniform, to see officers outside of uniform, to see them as humans, right? Like the rest of them, both strong, weak, vulnerable, and, the ability to get better together.
Right.
So I think this idea is phenomenal. We're going to get together. We're going to talk about dates on getting all this together. But I think this is a plan that needs to happen, right? And I would personally like to send a shout out to all the other schools doing similar programs out there. There's many of them. My buddy Nick Jacobs, who trains down in the Miami area, he alerted me to his school doing the same thing, man. I like to say there is a way, not the way, but this is the way. This is the way to make everybody better, and it's absolutely amazing. So
Right.
Awesome. All right, well, we've gone a little bit over time, but we got to finish up the main segment, right? Or not the main segment, people's favorite segment, right? So it's the get it off your chest segment, right? So as far as jiu-jitsu goes, we'll just narrow it down to jiu-jitsu, right? What do people need to do to start getting better? What do people need to stop doing to get better? Talk about anything you want, but as usual, don't talk about your neighbors. Nobody cares about your neighbors.
So what do people need to stop doing or start doing?
Yeah, start doing first. Yeah.
That's how it start. They need to start training, right? That's what this whole podcast is about, right? Guns, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, right? They need to be more aware of what's happening, right? So especially with this whole pandemic thing, like the ones that are getting hit the most are the ones that are not healthy.
Yeah.
Right. So get yourself active, right? Get into a gym, find a great school, find a program that's going to be good for you, right? Of course, if you are near a Gracie Baja school, I highly recommend you stop by at a Gracie Baja school and train with those guys. You'll get everything what I'm saying once you get there, right? Two, what people need to stop doing is it's hard to do is our egos.
Mm-hmm.
Our egos are something that really hold us back, and I can talk about myself as well. But getting tapped isn't the worst thing. If you're not getting tapped, you're not learning.
Yeah.
Right. So I will put myself in positions where it sucks, and I'm a little hard headed. Right. If somebody sweeps me, I will put myself in the exact same position because I want to see if they're going to do it again. Yeah. And if they sweep me again, guess what? I get almost excited when they achieve their position, even though I'm not allowed. I'm trying not to allow them to do it. So ego check, right? You won't last long in jiu-jitsu if you have ego, because you will tap out way more than you're going to tap. Yeah. I cannot tell you how many times I've been tapped out over and over and over as a younger belt and even now. But have your ego in check. It's not a bad thing that you lose, right? Like Master Carlos says, you either win or you learn. Those are the ways that we're going to get better.
Yep, 100%, man. I'll tell my own story as far as that. It's like some people know that I should train at a different. I mean, I'll say is Tony Passos. I love Tony. He took me from white to purple with my traveling schedule. He only teaches at night, so where Gracie Baja has classes, 3-4 times a day, and Bev wanted to go there, so that's why. And he was perfectly cool with it. The thing at Tony's was that very few people, Tony, Josh, who's a black belt, could stop my north-south choke, right? It's if you got there, you were either getting choked out or it was a purgatory tap.
Right.
The first two people I ever met, right? And that's not a knock on them. I mean, they were tapping that school. They're full of monsters, man. They're absolutely beautiful people. But the first two people that I came across in my entire jiu-jitsu training career that could consistently stop from tapping my north-south choke was you and Hani, right? And that caused me to do more growth, coupled with the fact that no one has wrist locked me more than you and Hani, right? And if I wasn't getting frustrated with you guys stopping that choke, and if I wasn't getting frustrated from you guys wrist locking me all the time, my game for a very long time, because I travel so much, was very stagnant. But because of that, I put the two together, right? And now my transitions from wrist locks to the north-south choke has just completely changed my game.
Yep.
And it's amazing. And I would not have learned that if I wasn't getting stopped or if I wasn't getting tapped. And that type of environment is probably that type of environment. Once you get there, is that if you are learning and everyone else has a good disposition or a good outlook on getting better and getting tapped and all those other things, if it doesn't have that, you need to think about where you're going, right? You need to think about where you're going. So outstanding. So Professor, go ahead and give them all the information about Gracie Barra Ashburn, where they can find you on the web. Anything else you want to say let's get capitalist here. Go for
it. Guys, if you're definitely go onto our Instagram page, right? gbashburn.com, or our Facebook page, Gracie Barra Ashburn. Look us up, like our page. We appreciate if you're locally, if you're looking for a jiu-jitsu school, if you're LEO, right, that's looking to get into jiu-jitsu, try to be a part of that program that we're about to launch. And, our goal here, that Coach Dana, my wife, and I wanted to do from the start is be a part of the community, right? And the community has opened their arms to us tremendously over the last year. And we want to make sure we give that back, right? And that's our responsibility, and that's what we do as black belts, right? And that's what you do as a purple belt as well. You want to give your knowledge to the person below you, because your goal is to make them who you are or better. Yeah. And then your goal eventually leave, and then they take that spot and that mantle, right? But if you're selfish about it, it's always going to be me, and you're always going to try to tap people out instead of allowing them to grow to one day be in your spot. And if you as the instructor aren't getting tapped, that means you're not pushing your teammate enough, and that means you're not pushing your students enough, because the goal for me is to make sure that my students tap me out eventually, or on a regular basis.
Yep, 100%, man. One of the greatest things that was ever said to me is my buddy, Andy Ruffner.
Oh yeah,
right? Big Andy Ruffner. So when he was like I think I was like he didn't give stripes back then, but when Andy came over, I think he was like a 3 or 4 stripe blue belt, right? Before he got his purple. And I had just gotten my blue, and he came over, and, we're both big dudes, and, I would go over there, and we would drill, and, in his basement and everything like that. And I just finally was like, hey, dude, why, man, I appreciate it, but why are you helping me out so much? And he was like, because you're the next biggest dude in the school to me, and I need you to get better to make me better.
Absolutely.
And then, and I think that is generally the attitude of everybody. We'll talk about Hanny, right? It's your job. If you specifically, it's your job to make me better. That's your job. That's why I pay you, right? But Hanny doesn't need to do that.
Right.
But he's pretty much showed me every wrist lock combination that he's done on me. You know what I mean? I joke around a lot. So when I teach, the lower belts some things, right? I always make the joke, all right, now here's the rule. If I teach you something, you can't do it on me.
You do it on me.
Right? But that's, of course, I'm being sarcastic on that, because I will tell you, and it's completely counter to what you would think. If I teach somebody a sweep or a technique and they get it on me, man, that's like one of the most proudest things a person can do, especially as a teacher.
And it's weird in jiu-jitsu, right? Because in life, they teach us differently. In life, you lose and you get mad because you lost. Yeah. But here we smile and we say, hey, how did you do that? And then I'm almost honored that you're asking me, right, to show you how you lost, or vice versa, right? It's counterintuitive of what we are told in life, right, where we just slap hands, shake hands, like, dude, that was awesome. Let's do it again, right?
100%, man, 100%. It's even though it's a very individual, it's not a team sport, because you're the only one out there. That old thing of a rising tide lifts all boats, right? It's 100% with a school on the mat in jiu-jitsu. So awesome. Thanks, Professor. I appreciate it. So, guys, here's where I get a little capitalist. So otherwise, Mrs. Jedi gets mad if I don't do this stuff, right? So, hey, guys, would love to train with you sometime, right? First of all, we'll start off with jiu-jitsu. If you're in the Northern Virginia area and I'm there, please come, right? And we'll get a roll. I'm going to be trying to go to, because I travel so much, I'm going to be trying to go into other schools and still get my training on, because being a 7-year 3-stripe purple belt is getting a little bit old, right? And so am I.
We have a plan. We have a plan, though.
We have a plan. We do have a plan. So I'd love to come and train with you. But if you guys want to learn, some more about their pistol craft and things like that, especially with the red dot pistol or AIWB position, please look at the schedule. If I'm not coming near you, it's because you're not looking hard enough. 75 classes a year for civilians and law enforcement, man. Would love to train with you guys. So go ahead and take a look at that. ModernSamuraiProject.com. Check out the new website. Got all the classes listed there. And that being said, if we expressed anything to you, I hope we expressed this. Be good, stay safe, get training.
Later.
Out. Awesome.